back to Crawl TV. On this episode, we are going to be trimming the fenders on our 2012 Jeep JKU. Our last Jeep trip, we did a little bit of damage to the front fender, ripped a couple pieces off, and pulled our fender liner out. So we're going to trim that fender liner up and take a fender that looks like this and turn it into a fender that looks like this. This one came off of our old Jeep that sadly rolled and was totaled. So we're going to make these ones look like those ones, and we're going to start on the passenger side that isn't so damaged so that you can follow along, because likely if you're doing this build you didn't wreck your front end, you're just doing it to trim the fenders up. Alright guys, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is pull all the clips that hold this fender to the structural mount underneath it. Once I have those out, this whole fender can just kind of pull off. My plan is to trim this fender liner back once this fender's off of it, and then cut the structural piece back, put the fender back on, and then tape it and trim it. So the first thing that you want to get is a prying mechanism of some sort. I'm using an actual clip puller, but you can use a screwdriver, anything you want. You can even cut these plugs off if you'd like. But you just stick them up in here, try to get a good angle at that. You're going to need to kind of work your way underneath of them. And they just kind of break off. So I think that one's actually already busted a little bit. Come on, meow. There we go. Okay. Now with all those out, you can separate the fender liner from the fender itself. And once that's all disconnected, all you have to do is pop this fender right out. Okay, fender removed. We're going to be trimming this structural piece back to this second line here that you can see on the structural piece. And we're going to be trimming the fender liner itself back down along the body line here. Now you have the option to completely remove your fender liner if you'd like, but I prefer to keep the mud outside of the engine bay and everything clean inside, as clean as it can get on a Jeep. So what I'm going to do is take my knife and I'm just going to cut a line down that fender liner that I can then remove the fender liner itself and kind of follow along with my Dremel cutting tool to clean that up. Once that's shaved up, it'll match that body line and tuck back in there so I can secure it, and the fender will mount on top of it and you'll never see anything behind that fender liner in there. So I'm going to draw a line really quick, and since we're cutting this line back here, I'm just going to kind of follow that, so I don't want to cut outside of that line. So I'll start here and just kind of work my way in and down. That fender is going to taper in toward the body, so I'll clean it up like that, and then just kind of follow along here down around this big hump. Okay, that line will stay there even if it gets dusty. You can see actually the dust fills the line actually pretty well, so I'll be able to follow that with my cutting tool now and trim that up. Now to get this fender liner out, we've got one 10mm bolt to pull out. So I've got a socket ratchet here, and then we've got to pull a few pins out after that. So we'll get this socket on the bolt. Oh, that's tightening it. It's back. All right. Sorry, I'm probably blocking your shot. And there it is. That's actually more of a nut than a bolt, but we've got that out. And now something that I couldn't show you from the top side, but inside of this fender liner here, we are actually going to cut this fender liner right here. So it'll come down like that. And now we'll have that spot marked for when we do the cutting on the other side too. So we're going to pull these pins out, see if we can save any of them, but if not, I think I have some extras here at home. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's the 5th and last one. Fender liner just drops right out. Now we just have to remove the wiring and side marker light here so that when we start cutting, we're not cutting anything that we want to either keep or reuse. So we can do that first by pulling the pin out up top here. We'll just get this pin puller, stick it in there, and working it back and forth, it comes right out with the wiring hanging down. We're going to push our finger up here at the top of this electrical connector and pull down here. If my fingers were a little bit smaller, this would be easier. There we go. Alright, that popped out. And on the light side here, to pull this out, all we're going to do is twist counterclockwise and pull. Bolt comes out. So the wiring is out. And then to pull the side marker light off, there's just one little tab here. So we'll push that down, pull the light off, and then just slide it down. And it comes right off. Since this is a structural piece, we're going to want to keep as much of it as we can so that, you know, the new fenders are still strong. So what I'm going to do is try and preserve as much of this front as I can, getting rid of all this umbrella and side marker light piece. So since we already talked about cutting along this line here, I'm just going to mark my line a little bit diagonal inward so that it doesn't show, because the fender is going to be cut diagonally. And we're going to cut it down, across, up and over, across that, up, right over to that. So it'll be a full diagonal from this second notch back to the very corner of this here. Now I'm going to take my jigsaw, cut that line that I just drew out, and little safety tip, always remember to wear eye protection. You know, based off the way my nose looks, maybe I should just wear a full face mask. But we're going to cut this and get all that excess knocked off. That is some very tough composite plastic. Okay, so we've got a Dremel with a cutting wheel on it, and we're going to trim up this fender liner that we marked earlier in the video. This is the front of the fender liner. So we marked this diagonal line down here, and then we marked a line on the other side of the back of this fender liner here. So once we cut this front side, we'll flip it over and cut this back side off. So let's get started. Make sure to wear your eye protection. Get your dogs out of the way if you have to. Yeah, come on. Here's the line that we marked earlier when it was on the Jeep. So we'll cut that. fender liner is cut, it'll go back into place right in here. And you can see if we line up the bolt holes on it, we are going to have a little bit of a gap here between the actual fender and the fender liner itself, but that's still better than having just wide open fenders. So we're going to work with that, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to throw all these push pins in and then put this bolt back in. Start at the front of the Jeep here. Five, and then one bolt. Now I can throw the fender back on, mark it, and cut it. So we'll start at the front here and just line up this clip in here. Snappy, 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 and then all the way back. Okay. You guys have a couple options here. I've seen a lot of people that cut their fenders flat around the front. You can round them, square them, rock the flat fender look if you want to. We are going to actually angle ours in the front and then drop them down and then just run along the edge here, and then we're going to kind of taper it back in toward the body line here where our rockers are so that we don't rip them off on anything if we get, high centered. So, bug. I'll start taping here. Now I'm going to start from the inside of the fender. And I'm putting the outside of the tape where I want to cut. So I think I'll just go, I'm actually going to need to go a little further in. I'll tape it up and over. You may need to do this a couple times, find what you like. Kind of diagonal this out. You got to decide how wide you want your fender. So for this part, I want my fender to come out to about right. Let's see here. It's going to be a kind of a mild taper in. And as we go over the hump, I want to bring it a little bit closer to the body. So we'll say here. Now the trick is not to run one good piece of tape. It's to make both sides match. So that's going to be the hard part when I get over to the driver's side. But that looks pretty good. It's about what our old fender looked like. Of course we'll round out this corner here a little bit. I'm actually going to move this front piece of tape though, because I decided I want to cut on that inside line, not on the outside line. Oh. We're ready to cut, but before we do, we want to pull the fender back off the Jeep so that we don't cut into our front fender or into our grill, because those marks are a little bit harder to hide. Pull this back off. There we go. And we'll safely cut it down here. done cutting. As you can see, the fender's still in one piece though. As you cut, that plastic melts and then dries back together. So we just kind of gotta break this apart really quick. Now that that's broken off, this is what's actually going to be our fender. We'll use a knife to just clean up some of the burrs along the edges. Don't take a long time on it, because this isn't going to be what people see when they look at your Jeep. We're just going to kind of chop off all those big plastic chunks that melted on there. Since this is as clean as it's going to get for now, we're going to throw it back on the Jeep. This time we're going to make sure that it clips into every clip, because it's not going to come back off for this install. I don't think so. I have to bang these ones in straight. Okay. Now I picked this edge trim up over at O'Reilly's. It's just very standard, door trim. So what we're gonna do is run this. It's got adhesive already inside of it. So as you push it on, it'll stick and it'll stay. It's still on our old fenders from our last Jeep that is no longer with us. So the stuff doesn't come off very often. You really don't have to ever worry about it ripping
That Jeep
off.
was underwater.
Yeah, it was underwater.
For a bit.
We'll just bust this open here. We're just going to run this along the length of it. So we'll start here at the front. You can see how easy this is to push on.
What you can't see is it's not completely solid. There's an opening.
Yeah, so I'll turn it around here for you. This has a split in it, and as you push it on, that split opens up. It just goes right over the edge of the fender. And this fender trim, while we're talking here, I would compare to our Pro Comp lift. It's not a permanent fix for us. It's just something that's going to get us by for now. Gives us a little bit more tire clearance. And, it's another thing. It's just one step in the many steps it takes to build a Jeep. Because, most people can't afford to buy everything that they need right away, including us.
I think we mentioned actually in Flat Nasty Part 2 video, Poison Spider.
Poison
if you're
Spider,
watching.
If you're watching, I'm still dealing with plastic fenders. This is video number 2. And in that video, we were driving down the road, and one of our fenders decided it didn't want to be part of our Jeep anymore, and it caught wind and took off. So in this fender trim video, I'm still gonna run some LED running lights, just tuck them up inside of the fender well. But I'm also going to run 2 elevator bolts through the top of the fender and then through that structural piece that we trimmed earlier. And that's going to keep the fender from, catching wind and taking flight.
So I'm not going to have to run a mile back from where you swear it flew off?
Yes.
Perfect.
It actually turned out to be 2 miles back.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
I got my workout in. All right.
Okay. We're at the end. Snip, snip.
Don't say that around Sue. He's sensitive.
Sorry, buddy. All right. And there you have it. That adhesive will actually dry and it'll stick pretty tight to that fender. But that cleans it up quite a bit, as you can see. It's no longer jagged edges. It's just a piece of door trim. And we're onto the back side of the Jeep now. As you can tell, Quite a lot has happened to the Jeep since we cut the front fenders. We just never got around to getting these back ones chopped up.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, just got home from work in the work uniform, and I'm actually quitting my job tomorrow. So
Woo-hoo.
Stay tuned if you want to see that.
We're
It'll be
filming
on
it.
film. What we're going to do to get this back end off is actually pull all the plastic rivets along this edge, just like we did on the front end. And then once these are out, we're going to pull this fender liner out. So we'll get started now with these plastic rivets. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Pretty sure that's only for seconds.
Oh yeah. What do you say otherwise?
3, 4,
Caribou.
5. Is that a 151 rum reference?
Guacamole.
And spaghetti squash.
There you go. All right, plastic rivets are out, and now we just have a couple of plastic push-in clips that are actually holding this thing in place now. So we'll pull those out.
I feel like I should mention you're kind of out of breath, not from this, but we did just take the hard top off. So
It's important to note
it's also 97 degrees outside.
it is really hot.
He's not that out of shape, I promise.
Come on.
1 Mississippi.
Now you're getting it.
Ooh, that
These things come out with some force.
hit me in the chest.
All right, one here.
I feel like we should be wearing safety goggles. Viewers at home, safety goggles.
Do not try this at home. We are untrained professionals.
No, do try it at home. Just wear safety goggles. The whole point of this is a home.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Do try this at home.
Just try it smarter.
Wow. This one's really fighting me. Ow!
Nope.
You're out of there, man. You're done. Okay. Oh, there's another one. Okay, this one's getting cut out as well.
Maybe we just default to that.
Yep, I think that's what we'll default to. And that's it. That's all of them. So I've got frog tape on this, and we're going to go ahead and stencil out these rear fenders. I'll try and match the bottom width as closely as I can to how wide it is in the front. And then we'll just run it up and flare it out just like it is on those front fenders.
You guys at home probably don't know, but Jarrett is actually somewhat of an artiste. So kind of trust him. He's really good with expo markers on other people's whiteboards and even our own. So this will probably turn out okay.
Yeah, not bad. We're up to cutting now, and we are using the Craftsman single speed Dremel with a cutting wheel on it, just like we did on the front fenders. Eye protection first. Here we go. We'll cut along this line and then try and make the passenger side match. Yeah. This is my favorite part. It's like cracking an egg.
Ooh.
Nice and clean.
Please do not do what we've seen so many people do and leave it like that. Not acceptable.
Looks horrible, so
Not acceptable.
you gotta clean it up. Now that's a knife. Now what I've done is thrown the old fender liner back into place. I didn't clip it in, I just kind of mocked it up in the spot where it was. And I'm going to trace out now where I want my cut lines to be. For this, I'm going to follow a little farther back and then kind of cut it in right up in here.
Similar to the front. And this is really just a personal preference thing.
Right. You can leave the fender liner out if you want. I just prefer to have it.
Oh, I thought you meant sticking out from the actual fender. Like, you don't have to mark it up.
Oh, I guess you
I'm
could.
No, I'm not going to condone that.
You could if you wanted to.
If you do that,
Now I'm going to finish up my lines now that it's out of the Jeep.
if anybody does that, don't mention that you saw it from us. We love you guys. Just don't.
Okay. And now we'll chop that up.
Hulk style, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, that was easy. I thought there was going to be a lot more struggle than that. Okay, so now let's see how this fits. We'll go there and there.
That's nice.
Oh, that lines up really well. So we'll clean up those edges and we'll be good to go. Before I throw this fender liner in, I'm actually going to clean out the inside of this fender well and paint it black so that it kind of matches everything else. We did that with the front end. It looks really good. We'll show you guys what we do here on the back. But I got to get all this dirt off of it first so that the paint will actually stick. So,
Dirt? What is this, a Jeep?
I know, right?
Oh, wait. Wait.
Wait.
Wait.
Wait. How long am I waiting? What am I waiting for?
Okay, we're done.
Oh, okay.
Don't recommend doing this on any other part of your Jeep except for underbody suspension components and fender liner. We have seen people who have done this to their entire cars. Not a good look.
Not a good look.
Not a good look.
Aaron. Now we just have to push the pins into place. Slide up in here. Pin number 1.
Used from the pins that we didn't just get frustrated and cut off. You need a couple. Don't cut them all.
Yeah. To hold the rest of that fender liner in, now that all those plastic rivets are gone, we're going to drill a couple of holes in that fender liner and then run zip ties around so that we can, hold it up where it should be. So there are already holes in the fender here. We're just gonna drill holes to kind of meet those in this fender liner. Another one here. That should do it. Get a couple zip ties. Run these bad boys through. Oh. There's one. And there's two. Now we'll just clip off the excess, and that part is done. Now the very last thing we have to do on these rear fenders is put this edge trim in. And a little snip snip. Perfect. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we're going to put some elevator bolts in these fenders. That's going to give us a little bit more rigidity to these so that they won't rip off if they catch a bunch of wind. And underneath this fender, there is a flat spot you can see here. And that's going to be a great spot for us to drill through. If you guys want to run 2 bolts, there's another flat spot back here. And I'll hold the fender in place up here so that it doesn't move around on me. Now we're stepping this bit up to 5/16 because these are 5/16 by 18 elevator bolts. This is what they look like. As I mentioned, they're very, very flat on the top. And they do have a square, just like a carriage bolt, so that once you're threading the nut on, the top shouldn't spin too much. So we'll bore this out just a little more. And this should slide directly into it. Now once we start tightening that nut down, the square part of this should suck down into the fender and end up flush. I should probably let you guys know that we have severe thunder clouds rolling in on us. We've got an easy up top over our Jeep because I got caught in a freak thunderstorm yesterday, so my luck, I'll probably get caught in a thunderstorm twice in 2 days. But we're gonna go ahead and get this nut tightened down on this elevator bolt now. And this is a 13 millimeter. You guys can go buy whatever bolts you'd like. This is just what I was trying to do since it is going to be a flat top. Alright, now that that thing's nice and flat in there, I'm actually going to loosen it off just a bit so that it looks a little more flush here. And that'll be a good spot for it right about there. That should do it. It's nice and solid now. Now for the second bolt, like we pointed out, it's going to be that second flat spot there, and we'll just drill right up through it. The 5/16 drill bit is the only one that you really need for this, by the way. We just started off with a lower size, but we're ready to put this nut on, get this thing tightened down. Kind of fighting the rain showers here. You're going to want a deep socket 13 millimeter if you're using these same bolts. Oh boy.
When the rolls.
And the lightning strikes. Nice. Okay, so Now our 2 bolts are in. I might back that off just a little bit again.
Yeah, it's pulling on the front one.
For our running lights in the front, we actually picked up some LED Blazer running lights. They're actually trailer lights. I got them at Walmart. And we're gonna go ahead and get these brackets mounted up for them. But before we do, you should never put chrome on a Jeep. It's a rule. So we're gonna paint them black first. We're just gonna be careful not to paint where it grounds, because the screw is gonna go through that, and that's gonna need to be grounded down. So we'll just be careful to put the paint on the outside of this chrome. Oh, it's looking better already.
Oh yeah. Here comes the rain.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we'll set this in the garage to dry then. Fantastic. So it stopped raining, but the rain actually gave time for the paint to dry. So we're ready to actually install this thing that we painted earlier. As I showed you guys, here's the grounding spot on it. And we're gonna put this right here on the Jeep. So we'll actually drill out these pilot holes for it before we put the screws in. And now our next step is gonna be wiring. And we've got the factory wire that runs from the frame to where our old running light was. We're going to connect this back up where it goes so that we have a good length to work off of. You're not going to be able to see that very well, but it actually clips in right here. If you can see that.
Oh, if we didn't have these stubby bumper ends, I could get in. They're awesome.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Snap. And it's in. So the next step is going to be to cut off this end of it here, pull this protective sleeve off, and now we can actually measure out our length. For this one, white is going to be your power, black is going to be your ground. Here's our new running light. Like I said, these are actually trailer lights, but they are LED, and they've got 2 contacts on them that are protected by tape here, because I think they've got a dielectric grease on them. But they can only mount on the bracket one way. So you can see that these are just a little bit offset. How this goes in, if you look at it this way, this side's going to be your ground, this side's going to be your power, because this side is going to connect to this metal ring here. So your power will actually stick out of this C shape. So we're going to connect our power line that's supplied, which is this here, to this, and then we'll run our power directly to the white line, which is the power line coming from the Jeep. And the black line coming from the Jeep, we will just connect to the frame because that is a ground. So, first step would be to unbag, I guess, this foam bushing that the light will mount on. And the wire. It does actually come with 2 provided screws, but we're not going to need those. And this foam piece does come with a center piece. It's also not required. So we're left with these 2 here. And this will go beneath this when it mounts to kind of give it some padding, some cushion against that frame. And this wire is going to connect. I'm going to mock this up just one more time to verify. Alright, so this is going to connect to this side of the light, right here. Now we don't want this metal tab sticking out too far and contacting the frame of the Jeep, so we're actually going to bend that down to kind of keep it as flush as we can. That ought to do the trick right there. Now we'll run this wire through the bracket. And we'll screw this frame with the wire running through it to the Jeep now, but we're not going to tighten it down all the way because we're going to want to be able to pull the slack out of this to get that light all the way up. So I got to change bits here from a drill bit to a Phillips head. We opted to use a multi-purpose screw rather than the screws that were supplied with these lights, because these ones are really small and these are actually meant for a trailer. But since this is going on a Jeep, we want it to be a little bit more sturdy so that it doesn't get ripped off. So that's why we went ahead and drilled the pilot holes, and we're going to use a slightly larger screw on it. But these are actually going to mount up with this rubber bushing in here, and drop my screw. They'll go in these holes we drilled. I'll start with the top one here. We've got our Phillips bit on our drill. And we do want to make sure, one thing we do want to make sure of is that this grounding tab is actually inside of our hole, so that it's contacting the screw, because that's going to give us our ground. There we go. That's got a nice solid connection now. So try it again here. And that's going to be perfect for us. Okay, so I just have to drill one more into the bottom. There's our screw. Here we go, and I'm not going to tighten this down all the way because I'm going to want to pull this, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm going to want to pull this slack out now and actually attach this point to that grounding point inside of this frame. So we'll snap it in there and snap it in there. Now that it's mounted, all we have to worry about is this wiring. Like I said, this black is our power and this white is our power. So these will combine, and we'll attach the black that's coming out to the light to the frame, because that's just a ground. We're going to cut these to length to put a butt connector in between them, and then we will, so we'll have a nice short length of wire here. It's not hanging down where the tire will contact it. So we'll cut this white one about here. We'll strip them. And then these are going to be nicely secured back up in place where they won't get contacted. As far as this black one goes, we can cut it about this long. We'll drill a hole here into where the actual frame mounts to the chassis, and we'll just ground it here so that it's still actually contacting and making a ground. So let's get that butt connector ready to set up. This is our butt connector for the lights. We got one end in here and one end in here, and then we'll pinch them to hold them in place, kind of like a Chinese finger trap for wiring. So I picked this whole wiring kit up. I can't remember, it was either on Amazon or at like Walmart. It's just your basic wiring kit. It comes with all the little pieces that you might need to do something like this. So, and it also comes with these wire cutters. Since I've done a lot of home projects lately, I actually got a better set of wiring cutters. But I actually prefer these for the crimping, and they're color coded, so if you're using a red butt connector, you'll use the red dot to pinch it. Let's see, we'll go with the white wire first. Get that nice and twisted so that it'll want to go in smoothly. There we go. Give it a pinch. Nice and solid. And now the moment of truth, getting it connected again here.
It's fraying out here.
Want to make sure it's nice and twisted so that it goes in one piece.
There you go.
There we go. That should probably do it. Knock on wood, we'll get it pinched down here. And it's tight. Now we can connect the ground wire from the Jeep to the frame, just to make sure that it still has that good ground for it. And we'll use that to strip it. And then we're going to use a small eyelet Now we're going to use the stock wire casing that came off of this wiring, and we're just going to cut it where the tape is here and then again up here. And what that does for us is gives us the ability to split it. It's got a cut all the way down it, just like that edge trim. Yep. So we can fit it over the wires and then tape it up again at the ends to hold it in place. And we're going to run this right over our positive line here. And almost perfect.
There it is.
There we go. Now we just have to tape those ends up. Tape will go here. And it will also go a little bit harder to reach. Oops. I'm actually just going to pull this end down to tape it up. There. Make sure our line is inside of it, and that's all set. Now we'll run 2 zip ties in just to hold this line in place. First one will go here. All this is doing is just securing our wiring so that it doesn't get caught if it's hanging down on anything. The second one will connect to this wire up here. Uh-oh. I lost it. There it is. Perfect. Just clip them up. Now the few final things that I wanted to show you guys, because it has been a while since we started this project.
Yes, it has. You can tell by the lift kit on the Jeep.
Yeah, the Jeep has been lifted since then. We did elect to drill 2 holes inside of this fender right here, just behind this lip, and then 2 holes inside of the fender liner and secure this with zip ties. That kept this fender liner from flapping around in the wind. In addition to that, you can see that this has been painted flat black, just like we did with the rear fenders. We painted the inside of the fender wells to match the fender liner, and we personally think that it gives it a really nice touch. So we are done. That was it. We're finally finished with this. This project spanned, what, Grace, like 2 months?
Close to. We started the lift Memorial Day, and we had fender trim going for about 2 weeks prior, I think.
Yeah.
But we had some events to go out to where we needed the lift, so we had to take a pause.
Exactly. The lift kind of took precedence over fender trim, but very happy to be done with it. Here's the final product. You can see the running lights are on. The front fender, nice and secure. They're painted black inside, all zip tied down, and then onto the rear. Same thing. These ones are all painted black inside. We kept the fender liner on both the front and rear. Very happy with the finished product, and we're actually happy that we did it after we finished the lift, because you can really see how beefy this thing is once it's jacked up with those trimmed fenders. So
thanks so much to everybody who's been asking about it. You're really pushing us to work on it, and we're sorry it took so long. We hope we can still help you guys out.
Yes, let us know if you have any questions when you are doing this. It is a big project to take on, but not nearly as big as a lift kit. We're still working on that footage right now.
Oh my gosh,
Look for that in the future. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. It really helps out the channel. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and then you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, and message us directly at crawl_TV@yahoo.com. That'll do it. We'll see you guys. Thanks for watching Crawl TV.
I think we got those drain plugs pulled.
Yeah. This is great.